ring the bell at 4 minutes, a minute to go. Phil Twyford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I just say to that member there's just about time to get to the airport and get a plane to Auckland to the public meeting in his electorate, at which about 300 people will condemn and abuse the National Party for their destruction of the community in Glen Innes. So, Mr O'Connor, you've got just enough time to get to the airport and get to that meeting. So I urge you to get there. There'll be a lot of your constituents there very keen to see you this evening. Mr Speaker, it's generally a good idea, it's generally an accepted principle in this House not to make up unnecessary legislation for imaginary problems. But sadly, that is exactly what's happening in this House tonight. And the Lion of Te Atatu, or I think of him more as a Sphinx of Te Atatu, he's kind of got the energy levels of a, and the productive output of a Sphinx, comes down to this House tonight with this bill. And what's this bill about? What is this bill about, sir? And the New Zealand Herald reported that the bill's proponent, the Honourable Tau Henare, says that, quote, the idea came from his time as a union organiser in the 1980s when he stood before workers, before a show of hands strike vote, with a presence that, quote, would have made them think twice about voting no. So the Sphinx of Te Atatu, comes to this House with a bill that's setting out to solve a problem that's 30 years old from when he was an organiser in the Clerical Workers Union, when he was a bully and a thug for the Clerical Workers Union, as reported by the New Zealand Herald.
Order. I don't know to refer to a member as a thug is acceptable.
Can I speak to the point of order, Mr.
No. I know in the context of this debate it is robust, but I think calling someone a thug is unparliamentary, and I won't ask. I'll just ask the member to continue. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the New Zealand Herald pointed out, this bill was motivated. What motivated the man who brought this bill to the House was his own behaviour of intimidation and bullying 30 years ago. As he told the New Zealand Herald, there is no evidence, there's no evidence that's been put before this House or the Select Committee that there is any kind of problem to be solved here other than Mr Henare's own behaviour 30 years ago, sir. This is an unnecessary bill in response to an imaginary problem. Dozens of hours of this House's time have been wasted debating a bill that should never, ever have been brought to this House. We've got record numbers of New Zealanders heading across the Tasman, sir. We've got 160,000 people unemployed. We have a faltering economy and we have dangerous levels of private sector debt. And what does this national government think is a priority? What do they think is an important matter to be brought to this House? A ridiculous bill, sir, a ridiculous bill that is looking for a problem to solve. We've been talking about this evening, sir, the fact that this bill is based on a blatant piece of discrimination. It tries to impose, it will impose on workers' organisations a cumbersome and expensive compliance mechanism that interferes in the running and the constitution of workers' organisations. Why? There is no good reason. It imposes on unions the obligation to have a secret ballot. It sets in place the opportunity for employers to take frivolous and vexatious legal claims against the unions, but it doesn't place the same kind of obligation on corporate governance structures. And we've heard tonight, dancing on the head of a pin from that side of the House, we've heard a pathetic lecture from David Bennett about corporate governance theory. Each one of them, Jamie Lee Ross, Simon O'Connor, David Bennett, they've utterly failed to justify why this bill places the obligation on workers' organisations, and nothing like it for businesses, either for shareholders or for boards of directors. And that simple contradiction, sir, exposes why this bill is based on blatant ideological prejudice from the National Party. That's what this bill is about. There is no good reason for it, and it is a waste of this House's time.
I call Catherine Delahunty.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. I'm delighted to have an opportunity to address this issue. And before I go to the bill,